Far Cry 5 launched in March of this year. Most of you forgot it came out in 2018. But did you know that post-launch, Ubisoft released not one, not two, but 3 expansions to Far Cry 5? And even more of a deep cut for you. One took place during the Vietnam War. The other was on Mars. And the last was a zombie shooter. You want to talk about top WTF gaming moments of 2018. And the most jarring part of it all, they weren't even that good. What's up YouTube? I'm Ramakrishnan. If you're new around here, welcome to the channel. Welcome back subscribers, and welcome those interested in hearing about Far Cry 5 in December 2018. All 5 of you. I personally enjoyed most of my time with the game when it had launched this past spring, save for a few too many instances of frustrating AI, faith interrupting my fun with bliss, or an explosive ending with less payoff than anticipated. Far Cry 5 was a pretty fun open world game, one with a compelling narrative and interesting villains to execute it through. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get the same immersion and entertainment that the core game provided me when it came to its 3 DLC packs. The 3rd expansion, Dead Living Zombies, released at the end of the summer, and now we are almost in 2019. But when it comes to sharing strong opinions on games, there's no such thing as too late. So today, after finally diving into the 3rd DLC of Far Cry 5, I have concluded my thoughts on the season pass as a whole. Here they are.
Fucking Chavez. That guy was a live wire. Had a choice between jail or the army, and the stupid fuck picked the army.
Far Cry 5's first DLC was the only grounded one, taking place in the Vietnam War in Vietnam itself. Despite the fact that Far Cry 5 is set in Montana in modern day, Hours of Darkness is actually not terrible. The story isn't executed very well though, and that is nothing short of disappointing. Given the general premise's potential to be interesting, you're thrown into the war-torn country as a US soldier and have one goal in mind, and that is to escape. There's nothing else to it, and that's where it falls flat on its face. Hours of Darkness could have ran with some character development, dynamic and emotional interactions, and maybe even a take on war PTSD for our protagonist, whose name I forgot because of how little they want us to care about him after all.
What is your mission?
James Kenneth, Sergeant U.S. Army, serial number Romeo Alpha 46.
No! Tell me or you die!
Instead, we just tread our way through the Vietnamese jungle, facing the Viet Cong. Shooting felt as good as it always did in Far Cry 5. I enjoyed my time unloading my guns on the enemies, and particularly enjoy the stealth sections. While not shoved down your throat, Hours of Darkness does encourage stealthily killing enemies time to time, and the way it is done in the jungle setting makes it feel quite good. I found pleasure in destroying the AA guns, saving POWs, and killing commanders. Of course, that kind of content, the kind that is tackled by clearing markers and points on a map just because they're there, is something all too familiar and quite frankly infamous in Ubisoft's games.
I know what you're thinking, and no, I ain't gonna have you climbing towers all over the county for me, so don't worry.
My favorite parts were definitely the camps. I always loved tackling outposts in the way that I see fit, and Hours of Darkness offered me stealth and guns blazing approaches, as well as a new trick or two to cause some great explosions on my foes. It was overall fun and relatively familiar gameplay, with an added bonus of tension, thanks to the environment and setting and the tone of it all. I think there was potential, but Hours of Darkness was over before I knew it. If you choose to play the DLC's main mission only, you'll be laughing or crying at how quickly it concludes. There is but one mission, and Hours of Darkness encourages side content to be tackled, but that doesn't help it from being ultimately way too short. So the first DLC is, in the end, one that could have been really interesting, but was instead made to be a little too brief, storyless, and lended a feeling of being filler content for your money, despite some great mechanics. Far Cry 5's second DLC took the player to Mars, and results show that it is a big step back.
Herc, I really don't have time for this.
But dude, you made a promise. Do you even know what a promise is? That's like a sacred pact, man. That no
Hey,
man...
shoot, come on, get it, stupid cow. Herc, look, can whatever you need wait until tomorrow?
I'm gonna go with the big N-O on that, compadre, because this is one of them life or death things that I sometimes get myself into through no fault of my own.
The DLC proved Ubisoft's interest in doing ridiculous things with the series and how it can actually be an issue. I found that Lost on Mars was pretty boring and annoying to play, and these feelings arose within the first hour or two as well, so trudging through any more of it was never going to be an easy task. The game's setting is, like I said, Mars, and the red planet looks a bit like any other game's take on it, and that's not bad. The visual style of it works quite well in the same way that the dark jungles of Vietnam did for Hours of Darkness. Getting around Mars feels like a drag though. Ironically, I was so excited at first to float around the planet using a jetpack, fighting gravity itself, but movement feels slow. One of the most redeeming factors of Far Cry 5 was of course the gunplay. At least in my opinion, it felt great to use the many guns at my disposal. Lost on Mars shifts those normal militant weapons to an arsenal from out of this world, quite literally, and it rightfully feels different. I would feel kind of weird to be put into such a setting and premise and be given all of my normal guns from Montana. However, this new array of guns just feels off. I didn't like the way most shot. The lasers and energy gauges of Mars' guns was a lot less impactful and fun than that of Far Cry 5's main game. And the crab-like enemies were way too similar to one another as well, so killing them dragged after a while too. The only real redeeming factor for me was sadly one that lost its prowess as well, and that was the writing. The humorous approach to the way the story pans out using Herc was fairly funny. I got a good laugh and found myself entertained by the campy writing of the scenario, one where Herc's body was separated throughout Mars. But the hilarity wore off as it got a little too campy and silly. Herc is a comic relief in the series, and I like him, but I ended up finding him to be really annoying. And that was sadly the key word. I was annoyed by the writing, by the oddly difficult but not challenging in a good way enemies, by the slow anti-gravity movement, and by the less than stellar gunplay, and an expansion to a game that thrives on that. Where Hours of Darkness went for a grounded approach, and Lost on Mars went quite literally out of this world. The third DLC sort of balanced both. Dead Living Zombies is at its core a zombie shooter. You're tasked with mowing down zombies that are fast and brutal, and there's no survival horror approach to the overdone enemies here. But the catch is that you're actually playing multiple movie pitches.
What happens when the bullets run dry and mission annihilation turns into mission survivalization?
Only way we're gonna live is by surviving!
Guy Marvel is a B-movie director and has many ideas for zombie movies. The DLC sees him approach other filmmakers, giving his elevator pitch on how to change their formulas, always into some sort of action-packed zombie movie. The idea is kind of interesting and funny, and I like the way it actually takes place in a perspective of a movie maker in an actual script pitch. The execution can be seen in 7 different hypothetical movies, each with a small cutscene showing Marvel pitch his ideas.
I got an epic supernatural love story for you. Picture this. We rip off Romeo and Juliet and set it in a zombie-filled world.
I didn't like the cutscenes visuals though, in that they were just drawn in a simple manner. I did like the writing however, even if it did become a bit much at times, and we'll get to that later. But Marvel takes a provocative and interesting filmmaker and then shares dialogue with them as you play the pitch out. Sometimes they will ask what allegories or messages are being presented, or question the protagonist's feelings, all ultimately wondering what Marvel has in mind and why this crazy guy is trying to change their movies. Dynamic things of that sort, and Marvel always yelling with testosterone about how he wants everything to be badass and explosive, always with zombies, is the main part of the storytelling here. But it is kind of shaky in this DLC because it is set up as multiple scripts, so to speak. It was overall funny, many times breaking the fourth wall and being a little self-aware, using contemporary humor to its advantage.
That's all I need. It's the Guy Marvelous Cinematic Universe, and it all starts with one movie. Picture this.
But there's no denying that some of the jokes and writing flopped time to time, and proved that campiness is not so easy to do right. Gameplay wise, there's not much variety, but it is fun to kill all the zombies.
You get a zombie! You get a zombie! You get a zombie! Everybody gets zombies!
You're given a few guns to start, and you'll find others, as well as explosives and other items, as well as health kits to help you. As Marvel talks of his ideas for the film, you see it unfold and have to tackle the theoretical objectives. Gunplay does feel great, resulting in some very violent executions, a lot more so than in previous DLCs. The entertainment and the gunplay and zombie killing is intense and a lot of fun. Sadly, completing objectives within these short films of content is damn near impossible when zombies are running at you. The game's scenarios often throw too many zombies that are way too fast at you. So this made nearly every level of dead living zombies grow repetitive, and the pressure that the game gives you is not so fun, as the authentic challenge is replaced by the task of just killing too many enemies at once.
So, our hero's gotta fight off like 1,000,000 zombies.
1,000,000? While the chopper's swinging back around.
Yeah!
Dead Living Zombies was overall my favorite of the 3 DLCs, as the slapstick approach to writing was quite entertaining and the action was a real blast. However, it definitely needs to be noted that the final product could very well have been done in a more tightly written and longer piece of work, rather than in the arcade style that they went with after all.
So, the Sasquatch is fucking toast! That's cool, right?
It ends on a duel with a monster.
No, our hero sees a way out.
Ultimately, Far Cry 5 Season Pass is not amazing, not in any stretch of the word. Not one of the 3 pieces of content is enough to truly warrant your precious gaming time, and the money for that matter. With so many great games to play right now, released this year alone, if you have yet to play Far Cry 5's DLC, I wouldn't really recommend picking it up, and that is simply because it is just far too light on content that is worth your time. The thrills of killing zombies over some comically written film pitches are pretty good, as are the tense vibes of stealth killing the Viet Cong, but it is overall proof that Ubisoft didn't put all of their resources into this DLC after all. Post-launch content doesn't have to be split up into 3 random expansions that run you just a mere couple of hours each. Hopefully, this season pass is not groundwork for the future of Ubisoft's, or at the very least, Far Cry's content approach to DLC. But those are my thoughts and I'd like to hear yours. So be sure to let me know what you guys thought about Far Cry 5's post-launch content, individually and as a whole. Did you too find the traversal and action to be monotonous on Mars? Did you enjoy Guy Marvel's action-packed B-movies with zombies galore? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell so you guys can stay up to date on future uploads. Otherwise, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you for letting me rant about a game that is no longer in the mainstream conversation. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.